Hello and welcome to the Milltown Way, the independent Shamrock Rovers podcast covering all things hoops. I'm Ryan Brennan, and this week's episode we'll be discussing Shamrock Rovers' win over St Pats in Tallaght Stadium as Burke's stunning strike helped Rovers to a second Dublin Derby win in the space of 5 days. We'll also be discussing the Republic of Ireland squad after Ed McGinty and Adam Brennan were both unused in the friendly against Qatar on Thursday night, and Matt Healy now has joined the squad ahead of next week's friendly against Canada away from home. But we'll start off at Tallaght Stadium Friday night, and that was another Dublin Derby victory, the fifth one in a row as well. Shamrock Rovers beating Pats 1-0, and well, what an important win it was. And well, what other way to win it than a stunning strike from Burke about 9 minutes in, and there was nothing more to it after that. Yeah, look, I think that was a very important win. Nearly as important to beat Bohs as it was to beat Pats to continue that momentum, particularly where Pats are in the league table. You look at, obviously they're now third after losing to Rovers on Friday and Bohs beating Sligo. Me and Bohs now going to second place, but either way, look, that was a crucial win, and a very much needed one. It's it, wa- it was everything you needed really. Look, Rovers, I think at times, look, obviously you're pushing for a second goal to maybe make that a bit more smooth at the end, and not allow Pats back into it come towards the latter stage. But I don't think Pats ever really looked overly threatening. There was a couple of chances here and there, but I don't think there was any sustained periods where Pats were on top of Rovers. Look, they had a period at the end where set pieces and corners and throw-ins seemed to be piling the pressure on Rovers. You've seen Ghana international Joe Yanang come up for the set pieces at the end of the game. I think probably in the back of everyone's mind with the time that was left was, can Rovers get a counter attack and go up to the other end and score? But and that would have definitely sealed 3 points. But no, they didn't. But look, Pats didn't get an equaliser either, so that was the main thing. Rovers now extend the lead on Pats to 8 points. Pats obviously do now have a game in hand since Monday, given Rovers European participation playing their game early. But Bohs, look, Bohs are second place, and they sit 6 points behind Rovers level games. But look, Pat's game in hand could look mathematically it would take them five behind Rovers and put them back above Bohs. But it will be a while before we do see Pats play that game in hand, when the teams are in European action. Not too far away, but yeah, look, an important win nonetheless. I think started off. I think probably Pats were slightly better just as to start things off for a few minutes. Some similar chances, getting in behind, earning themselves a corner. Um, but again, look, nothing too concrete that led to Rovers being worried early doors. Keeper misplaces a pass that leads to Graham Burke's shot as well, Joey Nang. And that was early on as well, all before the goal. Um, but then the goal itself was, look, it was like spectacular early on as well. As I said, 9 minutes in, 9 or 10 minutes. Jack Byrne delivers a ball in, it's headed outward, and then Watts gives it to Burke. Burke kind of given a good bit of space as well on the edge of the box, hits it from distance, and look, make no mistake about it, he puts that a bit in the top right corner as well, the keeper's top left. But yeah, look, spectacular. And that's what Graham Burke does, surpassing now 100 goals for the club. And yeah, I think he'll only aim higher at the going rate, and he only looks like he's getting better. Look, I think there's been a lot of calls that he'll go down as one of the club's best ever players, if not one, right up there on the list. And look, he's outstanding. 32 years of age and still delivering for Rovers on a consistent basis. And with Graham Burke, I think as well. Look, everyone, I'm only kind of preaching to the choir here, but what he does, on the pitch, he can go everywhere. You see him drop back, and you see him drop very far back. Like at one point, I'm seeing him beside Enda Stevens, receiving a ball there to try to get Rovers out of a bit of, wouldn't say danger, but look, they're slightly being outnumbered and need to get out of it. And then they have Jack Byrne and the Stephen, bit of interplay, and all of a sudden they're in the middle of the pitch and it's opened up for them again. And Burke will roam. I think he's given the keys to kind of just free roam around Tallaght Stadium or wherever Rovers are playing daily Mountain Monday. And yeah, again, he's just showing how valuable he is to Rovers, to Stephen Bradley. And yeah, look, that was another example of it. Another player that, look, a few minutes later I noted had a good moment was Jake Mulraney. I thought he had a good few moments on Friday. I know, look, he does have his critics. Maybe it's, how becomes, or how he's perceived at times. But yeah, Jake Mulraney, I thought he looked good. He had an attempt and clawed back, and ends up putting in a hard tackle, and it ultimately led to a Pats throw in. But just to see that fight back and to get back and get a touch on the ball was good, and that's something that I think, look, I think everyone values. It's just to show that determination, show that energy, and show that you're willing to not just go forward and attempt to beat a man or put the ball in the box. It's you need to do both ends of it. Attack and defend. And I think once fans see that, they'll quickly, those who are critical of him will quickly, I think, probably shift their opinion once they see that the effort's been put in. I think that's maybe sometimes the overall reaction is that maybe Jake doesn't put in as much of an effort. He did have that issue, I think, with Pats. I mean, you most notably saw when it was confirmed that he was leaving for Rovers, was that he didn't put in the effort as much, or it was a little bit. I don't want to use the word lazy, but I think that was thrown around a couple of times by Pats fans on social media when the news was coming out that he was going to head to Tallaght. And yeah, I think maybe Rovers are just picking up on that slightly, and there are times where maybe it does suggest that, but performances like Friday will do him absolutely no harm, and if anything, will do him the world of good. Nearly about half an hour in, it was an every moment for, I think, Ed McGinty punches the ball to the edge of the box and ends up having to collect again. Where there was just kind of I think the box was just a little bit congested. Pats looking to try get in. Ultimately they didn't. But then there was a good few fouls from Pats, as I think everyone saw on Friday night, whether you're watching it in the stadium or watching it from home. And 33 minutes in, it's a Rovers player who's the first one to go into the book, which was, I think, probably more than frustrating from that Rovers perspective, because there was plenty of tackles that were yellow card worthy prior to that, and that was on 33 minutes. But yeah, look, it doesn't go in, or it doesn't, they don't go in the book is what I mean. The 34 minutes in, Pats have a headed attempt. It looked dangerous, and then Sabawale was there to clear it away. Again, these are the glimmer of hopes I think that Pats had. I said I don't think there was ultimately too much. There was, of course, look, that moment, and then Sabawale thankfully was there to rescue it, because it did that moment not long before half time either. Looked like they might have been able to get in, and then 5 minutes before stoppage time, you had Keane Levy in, and a huge block from Lee Grace. And look, a mention for Lee Grace as well, stepped in really well. I know he had a couple of mistakes against Bohs, but I think Friday night, yeah, he was really solid. You know, having that pressure on him after Pico is out of the squad, but look, on Friday he took it with both hands, and yeah, I think he was really impressive. And he'll need to be for the next while as well, because of course, look, there's no Pico Lopes, but he's away with Cape Verde for the next while. Then coming into stoppage time, more positivity from Jake Mulraney. He puts in quite a strong tackle. It does ultimately lead to Pat still getting the ball in the box, but I think he hits that first man, and again, it's just things like that. Once you see that from the lad, I don't think you can fault him too much, and he won't have too many critics. When he's on the pitch. Probably one criticism I think maybe fans have is that I think that final touch, or that delivery, I think sometimes he misses it, or there's a time where I think he does look hesitant to try take on a man, or try get past him and break down defenses. I think that's another element of his game that probably needs to be worked on or improved upon. And look, he has 2 weeks now to do that. Because obviously there's no game next week. Rovers don't play till the 12th of June against Shells. So yeah, I think if Jake can work towards that and put that put that in his mind, I think it could be positive for him. It could lead to more positive performances like we had today. But yeah, half time then comes and it's 1-0 to Rovers. And yeah, look again, I don't think you had too many worries on the Rovers front. They looked good. Um, and maybe at times they didn't look like they were coming out of second gear, but again, it was on a need to need basis nearly. I don't think Pats forced it out of them either. Second half starts, Pats put the ball in the box early on, and then look, it leads to quite a limp attempt. But again, it just shows that they're still there and they're putting in, that it was only a goal that separated the two. Um, there was a moment there about 11 minutes into the second half. Dylan Watts tries to slip in John McGovern, and Sean Hoare, obviously former hoop, he intercepts it. But I think, but I noted on that one particular chance, I thought, yeah, look, McGovern would have been right in, and look, that could have been, again, that could have been two goals, but look, it's all what could have been as opposed to what was. Only a couple of minute or so later, Joe Redmond has an attempt. He forces Ed McGinty into a save, and then just about less than half an hour into the game, Sean Hoare, he eventually booked. Plenty of tugging on the jerseys, I saw, against his former side. I thought he should have been probably in the book earlier, but he wasn't. And again, it was, as I noted on the in the first half, about 33 minutes in, was the Rovers were the first one in the book, and then Sean Hoare finally gets a card. But I thought the ref maybe was just a little bit hesitant to get the cards out. And yeah, as I said, look, ultimately it was Rovers first in the book, and Sean Hoare doesn't get one until 61 minutes, and I thought that should have been earlier. And that would have put him a little bit more on a tightrope then if he one of the main centre backs gets gets booked early on or earlier in the game even. Like what I thought he should have been. Maybe makes for a different game. And then you have El Bazzetti, cuts in, fizzes the ball in. That was about 65 minutes in. Again, that looked dangerous from Pats. And again, you're just kind of thinking, it's moments like that when it was cruising, or I said Roberts not maybe coming out of second gear, that's fine. But then when you have these chances that fizz in, you just think there's only there's only one goal to separate the two. And then 4 minutes later, Pats still have the ball in the back of the net, and ultimately it was offside. The fourth official ruled. Obviously, Stephen Kenny came out after the game to say that he thinks Pat scored a perfectly normal goal, or perfectly, just a normal goal that wasn't offside. But yeah, the replays aren't great, the angles, so it's a little bit harder to judge. But I don't know. I thought it looks offside to me, but that might be the boys coming in there. I don't know. Let me know what you think as well. Um, Not much then. I thought the latter stages of the game, Michael Noonan has a chance. He has the option to pass it off, and it leads to a corner. He takes the shot himself. Um, that was 86 minutes in, and yeah, look, if anything, towards the end of the game, it looks like it was just Rovers that were going to be getting that second goal. Then Joe Redmond gets a card, literally a minute later. So obviously the corner's taken more at the halfway line that he makes a foul, and fans around me were calling for a red, not a yellow. But I think the normal or the reaction you should judge maybe is it could be the players on the pitch. The Rovers, I didn't see many Rovers players protesting for Redmond to get a red instead, but he's seen yellow, and that was that. 89 minutes in, Max Kovalevskis does well as a goal attempt. Looked on, and then it looked similar to the Graham Burke goal as well, but he ultimately it goes astray. Stoppage time comes. Noonan has a headed chance. Again, doesn't result in it being going into the back of the net to make it 2-0. But yeah, I think the last few minutes of that game, I thought Rovers looked the more likely. Apart from then a couple of set pieces where, as I said, Joey Annan comes up to try help Pats equalise. I thought, other than that, Rovers held on despite the pressure from Pats. And I think that pressure only came at the very late stage of the game. So yeah, look, overall, Rovers finished the game with 62% of the possession, which I think might tell a story in itself. Rovers registered more shots on target as well, but Pats registered more shots in general, but they just don't think there were clear cut chances. That's the difference, and that's why I think Pats didn't look overly threatening. Even I think if you're a Pats fan, you're probably frustrated with that performance from them, because I think look at that and think when there's only a goal in it that he should be testing them more, and they don't. Ed McGinty wasn't forced into much, and obviously look at Ed McGinty back in the Ireland, back in the fold. He only had 2 saves to make in the whole game, and that's and Rovers are holding a 1 goal lead for 81 minutes of that. That's disappointing, I think, from Stephen Kenny's side, particularly a side who are going to want to push for a title race, and that definitely would have changed the course of it. Had they gotten anything, they're 8 clear, or they're eight Pats are 8 behind Rovers. Would have been 5. Obviously, look, if the two drew, or would have been 2 points even. Had Pats gotten the better of Rovers, and yeah, it's just one of them. I think I think they'll rue their missed opportunities, or or the lack of. Um, if you're Stephen Kenny looking at this side, but yeah, look, Rovers look solid. I think. Again, Enda Stevens was he on the back of scoring his winner in Daily Mount. Puts in another good performance. So does Lee Grace, and so does Sobowale. So solid from that back three. Corey O'Sullivan returned to the starting lineup as well, which was another positive to see. And his first full 90 minutes since the 2-1 win over Bohs in Tallaght Stadium, and that was on the 17th of April. He obviously picked up a knock since. And he played against Sligo as well. Corey being back it's a positive for everyone to see. And yeah, look, long may these positive performances continue. Obviously Corey played the second half against Sligo Rovers as well, but building on and getting 90 minutes against Pats in a huge game as well, and having a huge player like Corey is crucial to this. Ed McGinty, we'll touch on in the next in a little bit as well, of the whole discourse around it. But Ed McGinty coming back for Rovers, question marks did remain. I thought, would he return? The day before he was on the bench for Ireland against Qatar. I know he got no minutes, but it wasn't too sure then was he going to come back to Rovers. Literally 24 hours later, and line out for the hoops, but he did. Keeps a clean sheet as well. Look, ultimately overall of this, Alex Noonan didn't get any minutes, despite Stephen Bradley building him up, and telling everyone that Alex Noonan was going to play against Bohs on Monday night. I think that was probably a mind games game from Bradley. But yeah, look, I think Rovers are blessed to have McGinty in between the sticks, and look, he kept a clean sheet. As I said, he wasn't overly worked by Pats, but he's still in between the sticks and still a solid keeper that Rovers have in the books. And look, yeah, they'll be very grateful, and they would have been very grateful to have him back lining out for Rovers. And as Bradley touched on for that game against Bohs, where he kind of jokingly said to Virgin Media, I think, that McGinty just showed up. I'm sure it was well in the plans that McGinty would play against Bohs ahead of time. But yeah, look, it was good to see that he was back, able to return for Rovers as well. But yeah, look, plenty of good performances around the pitch, and of course Graham Burke, the one who gets the goal. Yeah, that was a crucial moment in the game, and what a goal it was. But yeah, that made it back-to-back Dublin Derby victories for Rovers. Within 5 days, and yeah, look, overall 5 in a row. Having beaten Bohs, having beaten Shells, Pats, and Bohs the last time, played 3 days in a row, and now it's back-to-back wins. And Shells in 2 weeks' time on the 12th of June, as I said, 7:45 kickoff in Tolka. That could make it 6 Dublin Derby victories, hopefully in a row. But yeah, that'll be another huge game, which we'll look ahead to next week's episode as well. We won't be getting into it this week, but yeah, and on that front, actually, Shelburne in really poor form. Drawn 1-1 with Galway, going behind as well, and drew 0-0 with Derry. So they're not in the best reign of form, and they're 5th in the table. Look, yeah, they are 6 points off a European place as well. So yeah, look, Joey O'Brien want to get them clicking into gear fairly soon. But yeah, look, Rovers, big win, another 3 points in Tallaght, another Dublin Derby victory, and 2 in the space of, as I said, 5 days. it's not bad going heading into a break. But speaking of the break, and it's an international break, it is the Republic of Ireland, and the discourse around it. We'll start off by that friendly against Qatar on Thursday night. Heimer Hallgrimsson ultimately makes four substitutions throughout the whole game. Maybe a red card might have scuppered his plans a little bit, but either way, I don't think that's really acceptable. Look, it's a friendly for Qatar. They're going to the World Cup. Ireland aren't. So on the Ireland front, I mean, the friendly meant nothing. Really, 1-0 win, quite a drab game. But yeah, look, he only makes four changes in the end. I don't know. I just didn't. First of all, I didn't get that. First of all, I didn't get. Look, it's a strong lineup. From Ireland. But again, like most of the players that are on the pitch have just come off the back of playing a full Premier League season or Championship season, whatever their club is. And even say on the Ed McGinty front, he's hoping Heimer takes off. Queven Keller has just finished up his season with Brentford, doesn't get a minute, and I just don't understand it at all. And particularly with friendlies, I've touched on this podcast before about how I think in friendlies they should just be changing the whole 11, or even a half time changing the whole 11, and one half you have one squad, and the second half you have the other squad. But like the fact that he only makes four changes doesn't change the keeper, so Ed McGinty doesn't get a look in. I know also on that bench there is of course Connor Brand as well, who would have been maybe looking to hopeful to get minutes, but like on the Ed McGinty front, look, he's performing for Rovers to a high standard. Now the only consolation is it's likely if he got any minutes, would he have played against Pats? I don't know. Particularly if McGinty had been given 45 minutes in the friendly, would he have been playing against Pats? I wouldn't say so. So that's the only positive. But look, on the other side of that coin, I don't understand it. The other Rovers player in that squad was of course Adam Brennan. I saw him warm up, being at the game in the Aviva on Thursday. I saw him and could have been maybe four or five other players warming up. They did twice, and it looked whatever about the first warm up they were doing. The second one, and this was throughout the game, throughout the second half. The second one looked very intentional. I thought he's going to come on. At that point, I was convinced he was coming on the pitch to make his Ireland debut, and he sits back down. It's just I don't get that. I really don't understand why you're making these players warm up and you only make four changes in a friendly. That means nothing for Ireland, as I said. And I'd even concede the point if Ireland were going to a World Cup, and they would have been treating this game like an important game then. Even though it is a friendly at the end of the day, but if Ireland were going to a World Cup, I'd understand that even. And I think if Ireland were going to a World Cup, I don't think Adam Brennan or Ed McGinty would be in that squad. But even if they were and they didn't come on, I can concede that a bit more. Given you're thinking, well, would they have been playing in the World Cup come the summer? But it's the fact Ireland aren't in the World Cup. A meaningless friendly against Qatar of all teams. You only make four changes. I don't think that's right. And even you have, of course, former St Pats striker Mason Melia. He came on for his debut in the 90th minute. I don't think he got a touch of the ball. Like, this is mean. Like, again, I just revert back to these things of, is Heimer Hallgrimsson picking these players just it ticks a box of, look how many players have called up, they've been in the setup and they're there. I don't know, because ultimately it looks like that way at the minute because he's still not bringing them on. Josh Honahan, of course, I always revert back to him. He was in the squad for friendlies. I think it was last year, or the year before, um, and he got no minutes, or it was last year, and he got no minutes for Ireland. And one of the games was a friendly. I think it was like a Nations League, or they're both Nations League playoff games, whatever it was. I think they're glorified friendlies in anyways. But look, at the end of the day, Heimer just doesn't. He hasn't put them on, and he's not giving them minutes. I just don't like this. I think this is the one that really, um, has really just frustrated fans like myself. Maybe I don't know. Let me know what you think as well about this, because we're going into another international game next week. Um, if you're listening to this, do let us know, either in the comments or via social media. But what do you think? Should Heimer Hallgrimsson be putting these on, starting them, maybe taking them off, or what way should he be doing it? Or or our listeners of this podcast, are you bothered that they haven't got any minutes, or is it more just about Rovers and that's it? Because that's perfectly fine as well if that's the opinion. But yeah, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts as well. But for me personally, I think look, Ed McGinty and Adam Brennan both denied a chance to play represent their nation in their home stadium. That's the thing I kind of whatever about them not coming on even whatever about you know it's look it's a friendly so they should have been playing anyways. But it's in the Aviva as well. So that was the point I thought about um, Dawson Devoy. Bohs looked like they didn't let him go so he could play against Rovers on Monday and play against Sligo on Friday. Ultimately, he didn't go to join up with the Ireland squad and ultimately he did play in them games. But sure, it made no difference because Ed McGinty and Adam Brennan didn't get any minutes and they were let go. So yeah, I don't know. It's very frustrating. I think particularly like as I said, it's a friendly. You should be playing. You should be utilising the whole squad there. It's a warm up friendly for Qatar. They're going to the World Cup, but not for Ireland. And even Qatar, they made 9 changes. The only two players that played the full game was their goalkeeper and their centre back. 9 other changes other than that. And they're the ones going to the World Cup where it matters for them. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's I think it's a slap in the face from Heimer Halgrimsson, to be honest. And now to go to Canada next week. Look, will he play them? Who knows? And on that topic, of course, two Rovers players are joining in. One joining the squad, and the other's joining as a training player. Matt Healy, Stephen Bradley announced it directly after the Pats game as well. Matt Healy will be joining up with the Ireland squad for the friendly against Canada, Montreal, and Joshua Dwyer, as well, who's going to be heading for Red Bull Salzburg, it seems. But yeah, them two lads are joining up with the squad, which would be look for Josh. Will be good experience as well. So that can't be understated as well. I think that's really nice. It's really nice to see that he'll be in that setup, and yeah, look, he obviously I know he's signing for Red Bull Salzburg. But yeah, to have him in there, seeing the setup is good. And look, he's at the end of the day as well. He is 16 years of age, so um, that's even better for him. On the Matt Healy front, I think he should be getting minutes. Like is Matt Healy going to go on the squad and not get minutes as well alongside Ed McGinty and Adam Brennan? I don't know. That's if so, it's quite poor. Again, I think I think if you come away from Canada and the three lads don't get any minutes, I think like whatever about Rovers fans' frustrations, Stephen Bradley, I think he'll end up losing the plot because look, he's spoken out against not even against Heimer Halgrimsson in the past, but he's just spoken out about how League of Ireland players are quickly overlooked, and which they are, and we're seeing it yet again. There's more proof to it. Look, there's no League of Ireland players playing, or as in, or none of them playing on Thursday in a meaningless friendly against Qatar. 3 Rovers players in the setup now for next week, eligible to play against Canada, and again in a meaningless friendly for Ireland. It'll be a good experience for them to go to Montreal and play against Canada, but other than that, it's a meaningless game for Ireland again. It's a warm up friendly for Qatar or for Canada, who will be going to the World Cup as well. Everyone who Ireland's playing are World Cup bound, but Ireland aren't. But yeah, do let us know what your feelings are on this matter, and yeah, going into it next week. But yeah, other than that, I think that's it for this episode. Another impressive Dublin Derby victory. For Rovers, for Stephen Bradley heading into an international break, 6 points clear at the top. You would have taken that prior to the Bohs game. And the fact that Rovers have gotten 6 points from a possible 6 this week is even more than impressive. But other than that, that's it from me. We'll be back to discuss what happened at that Canada game next week, and we'll also look ahead to Shelburne away as well in the next episode. But other than that, thanks for listening to the Milltown Way, and I'll see you in the next one.